All right, everybody, we are going to go live here today. I've mixed up a few piles of red, and I'm gonna lay in some of the red cloth, the red fabric that's next to the blue, and we'll just see how far we get. Kind of limited in my time today, but I'm gonna try to work quickly, work intuitively, and just see how far we can get. I'm gonna need a couple of tools. I mean brushes, whatever, you know. Get ready. All right, I should be in place here. Be happy to have you on. Please ask a question if you've got one, and I'll be peeking now and then at the chat. I don't have a moderator today, and we'll just kind of see where we end up. So thanks for being here, and if you're joining in a later time, feel free to drop off a line, some questions, what have you, and I promise I'll get back to them. So welcome, number one. Let's do this. We're gonna get some things going. Feel free to ask questions. Today I'm blocking in this section here of drapery. I've given myself a little bit of a challenge. I didn't like what was on the model earlier, and so I've kind of replaced it, and so I'm gonna be making up a lot as I go. We'll see how it turns out. There are a few folds that I really like that I want to capture, but thanks for being here, and let's get started. So I've already taken about 20-30 minutes. I've mixed up a few piles of reds here. I'm going to show them to you. Here they be, along with the blues that I mixed yesterday for the fabric. And those were just using a few different colors. Cadmium red, Alizarin Crimson, burnt sienna, and we'll see how far we get here. I'm gonna begin by establishing some good, strong, dark values in these areas where the light is faded. I've already built up some of that here along the side, so I'm just gonna go ahead and lay in those, really refresh those, because it gives me that fixed point, that dark black, my mixed black, chromatic black, that just allows me to begin comparing everything else to it. There we go. Yep, getting started here. Definitely dark down here, the way this is kind of wrapping down behind the arm. Gonna be careful. I don't want to lose the drawing on my hand. I don't want to lose the underpainting on my hand and get too crazy in my mark making here. So I'm just kind of barely using the edge of the brush to come up against it. There. Gonna see some really vibrant red today. When mixing red, some of the things you want to think about are you want the intensity, because that's one of the most amazing things about red, especially in oil color. And you don't want to lose that intensity by just adding white to it, and to get some of those lighter values, or just adding black or a mixed black to some of those. So I've used Alizarin Crimson, which is a nice deep bluish red, and it's very dark. I mean, I don't know if you can kind of make this out in the stream, but this is actually an intense red that I've put down. But it's in the shadow, and so it's really hard to read as that right now, and that's okay. We're just going to establish some of these really darker areas that have a lot of chroma, have a lot of color intensity, and that's one of the great things about working in oil, is this color intensity that happens and that's available simply by the medium alone. Again, feel free to ask questions. I'm going to try to explain the best I can as I go, but I don't know exactly what you'd like to learn, so I'll do my best, but please do your best too, and just shoot me a line. Let me know, hey, what's going on here? What are you doing? What do you think about this? Other life questions aren't off the table either, so you don't have to. It doesn't have to stay just directly to painting. You can ask me what house I'm in Hogwarts. That's fine too. We'll answer all questions today. So glad to have you. Welcome. Okay, I'm laying in these deep dark reds. When it comes to the reds that are in the light, my CAD red medium that I'm using, that's pretty much going to be my light, and I'm not going to even use that directly out of the tube because even that is too intense. Everything needs to be mixed down, you know. Very rarely are you going to use something directly from the tube, and you want to avoid that as much as possible. It reads that way. When you lay it down, when you lay that color down, it reads that way, and you really want to avoid, a color that really sticks out because it doesn't have any other unifying colors with it. So you got to be really careful not to just use straight tube colors, but have things that are mixed together. My black is ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And if you've spent any time on the channel, you already know that because that's all I ever talk about. It's using a chromatic black. So the nice thing is with this chromatic black, all of the rest of the colors in this red are essentially using both the ultramarine blue and burnt sienna throughout. And there is unity even in something as disparate as you'd say, well, you're painting a red cloth next to that blue cloth. They have all the same colors present in them. You know, I even used some of the CAD red for some of the spaces that needed it in the blue cloth, where it needed to just be a little warmer. And so all of that is working together. I'm going to be jumping back between a couple of source materials, and I'm going to see if I can make this meld happen of these two. I don't know if it's going to be possible, but I'm going to try. And I have two images, and one I didn't like very much, partially because I know how it was made. It was made using some fabric. So one of the nice things about when you're creating your composition, so you have your model and you're draping your model, you don't have to you don't have to have necessarily a dress, or you don't necessarily have to have cut garments, because oftentimes it's just a matter of just having the right amount of material to play with in order to hint. So here's kind of the secret of the piece. All of these, it's not a dress. It's not anything that has been made. It's all it is just a length of uncut and treated fabric. That's it. And we draped it in such a way to try to tell a story of a dress or a bit of a cloak or an extra garment. hanging around the shoulder. None of it, you know, was real. And you know, in doing so, if the model doesn't really have to move all that much, which generally for a painting shoot, at least for me, I shouldn't speak for everybody, you know, my model just doesn't have to move all that much. And in doing so, I'm gonna try to kind of keep her still, almost sculpt her into the pose and into the look I'm going for. And it's you know, we do a few more like acting, if you would call it that, where the model is attempting to move and create movement or motion or natural looking poses from points of movement. You know, I do that some, but in the end, I'm usually landing on something that just really speaks to me. And once I do, then it's all about, okay, now let's play with all the little elements from the fabric to the pose of the head, the hand. And then when I feel like I have enough of those pieces in play, that's when I get what I hope is going to be kind of my base photo for the pose, and then the rest will have to come together as I'm looking back over my collection of works, collection of photographic references. So if you were to see what I'm working from, I mean, it's just quite comical. I'm not really trying to make it work or make a believable image. I'm just almost like, if you can remember your time in Sunday school and you remember your flannel graph, and you have these characters that sometimes can even change clothes to a degree, maybe almost like a paper doll, that are in place, and I'm moving them around, I'm testing the composition in various ways, I'm selecting the best parts, and I'm not really trying to make it real, because I'm not going to do that when I paint it. I just more want to see the overall composition, see if it's going to work, see if it has the movement that I like. And so they're actually often pretty funny. Sometimes there's like 3 hands or 2 bits of a head, or, you know, because I'm just piecing it, not really trying to achieve the look of the final painting, only to give myself a little bit of knowledge as to what it's going to look like. So this is looking pretty good. I feel like I like what's happening here. We've got this nice dark side because we're going to try to create a volume here. We know the light's coming from the left, and so even though, yes, I'm painting folds, but I'm thinking about the overall shape, this overall volume of the torso. And I just want to capture that. No matter how I'm doing it, no matter how much these little pieces are coming around, I'm still just thinking about the whole, just like this. And I encourage you in your work to do the same. You know, I think we can get caught up in like, oh, well, this fold looks this way, or this fold looks this way. No, that's how that goes together, and we're just missing it. Yeah, you want to get some of those things right, sure, but you do want to hold on to the overall shape that tells us about volume in the painting. So I'm gonna jump in with another reference I have of the torso. I liked. What I didn't like about my old reference was kind of what the shoulder looked like. So I have a new reference of the shoulder that's a little more simple, and to go against everything I just talked about, I used an actual dress that was kind of red, because I knew I just needed a little more structure there. One of the big things, red is red's a tough color to work with because it's really dark. its local value is dark, no matter how much you look at it. And so, you want to like add white or add some cad yellow or something for some of these highlights, but we're just not gonna need it. The color itself is plenty dark, and even the highlights themselves are probably gonna sit at a 50 or 60% value. And what I mean by that is when you have a value, I just think about it, when I talk about value, I just talk about relative light and darkness. And so if you imagined like a strip that just went from white to black, and it had a bunch of increments of gray in between that. That's what I think about when I think about value. So the lightest part of the red drapery, the fabric here, is probably going to only be about a 50% value, which, when you think about things in the light, that can seem a little, it's like, well, can that be right? And the truth is, it can be. So I'm just gonna make some things up. I do have some good reference, but I like this a little better. So I'm kind of piecing them together a little bit in my mind. And you can do this anytime. What I'm probably going to run into is, I built up some of these values, these darker values that are no longer there. So we'll have to see when I go to try to get coverage with this final paint layer if it's going to be opaque enough. It's probably not. And so I'll just have to remember, I'm going to have to go back in there after this dries and just reinforce that some. For instance, I'm already looking at it now, and maybe I'll, just for fun, I'll put some really intense red on top and just see if, so you can see, like, the more I rake it across, you can still see that bit of underpainting that I put underneath to just give it a little more oomph. And yeah, I'm gonna have to work on that. That's okay, because we can cover that back up. So as I said, I'm kind of wildly inventing here. I've abandoned my old source. I just didn't like how the shoulder was. And so I'm going to work on top of it. It'll just be one of those interesting things that if they ever x-ray the painting in the future, they'll say, oh, what's this? What did the artist intend in this section? And they'll just be left to wonder. A lot of times when I'm working on drapery, I may not quite take it as intense as I see it initially. Like maybe a certain shape, because I want to build up to it. And sometimes that in the act of building up to like a lighter value in an area that's catching light, you can really achieve nice effect. Just create a little more sensation or feeling of light. So since I'm looking at, this painting is a mix. Well, I should say not a mix. It's going to be part of a series, and I'm going to be returning to these same colors again and again. And so I want to keep in mind, some artists will retain some of the color, or they'll mix huge piles of it, knowing that, okay, I'm just going to return back to this. I didn't do that. Would probably be a good idea. It would probably save me some time. But I'm hoping that maybe I can get a palette cam going later. Everyone has been requesting it, and so we're going to see what we can do about that. Yeah, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop those off. I'd be glad to answer, and thanks for keeping me company on this Saturday afternoon. Probably going to go until about, it's 1:40 now. Probably going to end up going till about 4 o'clock or so. So I'm wanting to move swiftly. Hard to do sometimes, admittedly, but I know I only have so much time before other engagements call. So so when I'm putting in the drapery, I'm not, like I said, I'm thinking about the overall shape because I want to create volume, but then I'm also thinking about each of these little shapes that is building up to the whole. And I'm just going to block these in. The sooner I block it in, the sooner I can cover up all of my underpainting, and I can see what is going to work. I think I like it not so as I was saying, I'm using 2 different source materials, and I'm just guessing. I think I like this edge a little better for the shoulder, so that's gonna happen. So we're gonna kind of block. Have to be another day. Maybe I'll be able to do it now. Fine. So you can see like how different me painting my black on top of an area that I did not build up the value on. You see the difference between this area here, which is sunken in, and that will all come back and bring that same level of richness to it as soon as it's either varnished or I oil it out. That's something that I'll do more towards the end of a painting, is oil out a certain area just so I can be a little more aware of my value comparisons, and so you can see it doesn't quite do the coverage, so it's going to take a couple of goes. That's all right. There isn't a little area back here catching the light, and you'll see we're going to get more into this as we go, but I'm thinking about where it's going, where the fabric's going. And so I'm kind of trying to follow some of this fold with my mark. So, I'm not going like this. I'm actually following the fold. The block in, sometimes I don't do that as much, but I kind of had the intuition that it's like, well, this might be about all I need in that area. We'll see. There's kind of another couple of fun spaces that, maybe, what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to extend it a little bit. So I'm looking at 2 different source materials, and I kind of like the fold on this one a little bit. Kind of opens up a little more. I think I'm going to do that. Also, I'm getting some reflection, and that's why I'm going to bring my brush back down. It's just kind of reflecting off my light sources. I can't quite see what's happening. And I might do. Let's remove this. So a lot of it is making decisions. I'm gonna take that back out. I think it's better without it. And I just kind of get this loop there. Yeah, I like that better. Hello. It's good to see you, Mr. Moran. It's good to see you, Anna. Welcome. Good to have you. And I'm just gonna call you Mr. because I can't quite. I'm like turning around. It's good. I'm glad to have you, Anna. Good to have you again. We're I moved my computer. I got smart, got a longer cable, so I could actually read my comments from nearer. So sometimes I do actually think and do something helpful for myself. So I can at least turn around rather than having to get up to look at the comments. So you're saying, what are you doing painting on a Saturday? And I might say, well, I've got a lot to do. So I thought if I can even sneak in just a couple of hours today, that will be a big victory. As I said, this is there's 5 images, the 5 joyful mysteries, and then there are 2 other companion pieces that are going to go with them. And so it's a 7 painting series, my deadline being December. And as you can tell, and as you know, this sort of thing doesn't just happen, and so it does take quite a bit of time. And so, you know, I'm probably a little strange to think, but even now I'm experiencing a little bit of, you know, just nerves and thinking about the amount of time I have. So I really need to stay on it, that whole time management thing that we're supposed to learn. I've got to really keep on it. Otherwise, I'm going to quickly find myself out of time. And I really want it to work, and I want to meet my deadline. These paintings are going to go up in a space that I'm just floored to be a part of. Someone's converting part of their home into, for lack of a better descriptor, an Italian church. And so I've seen some of the renderings and just floored to be a part of it. So I'm still just blocking all these in, and slowly, I know right now it's very angular, and I like to keep some of that. To me, I find that interesting. When I'm working on my drapery, I just leave some of those harder edges, and I find that it feels a little more volumetric to me. And rather than, you know, these really soft curvilinear shapes. And some fabric does truly lay that way, so I'm not saying it doesn't. I just find, I don't know, I like it to feel a little chunky. I guess when I look back in art history, it just always feels chunky. Funny thing to say about the old masters and the way they did drapery. I think probably because the fabrics they're using just are radically different from what we use today. Probably a lot thicker, didn't have any stretch capabilities, that's for sure. So if you were gonna try to look good in a pair of jeans or something, you didn't have your stretch to make it work. You just had the inherent nature of the textile. And so I did pick up when I bought a true dress to use for these, something that I don't think would be really all that comfortable to wear in real life. And so grateful for modern conveniences in dress. So yeah, we can kind of, I mean, it's starting to happen. You're starting to witness this curve. That's really, you know, it's exciting. more and more parts of it are coming together. Definitely won't be on tomorrow, so but planning for Monday to be there, be back in place and going, kind of wherever we are next. I have a secret hope that I can finish the red today, but I'm not holding out too hard on that because I know just a reality. It's a lot of real estate to cover in one day, and I probably won't make it. That's okay. If I can finish like a section, like so if I do this one here and I'm satisfied, then I may move into this area here. Then I'm just gonna see where my time's like. If I think I have enough time, then I might move into this. This will probably go pretty quick because it's relatively dark. There's not a lot of detail, but I want to make sure that I definitely get the detail here along in the torso, the chest. So I'm getting some really bad glare today, and I think it's like in a perfect storm, perfect place where it's just causing me. It's definitely my easel light causing me catching the brush mark. Sometimes if I lower it a little bit, because it definitely happens the more I'm kind of viewing it up like this, so the higher the better generally. Okay, I gotta figure out what I want to do in this area. I'm just like all of us when it comes to like something you're not sure you want to do. How long can you put it off? So I've been kind of putting off the decision I needed to make up here, but we're going for it now. See if it works. Muster up the courage. So I'm doing something I don't like to do because it doesn't, the immediate results aren't there, and it'll require me to kind of go back in and correct. But I'm gonna cover over I'm gonna do a different rendering of this area. I didn't really like how it was before because we had just made it up using cloth. We didn't really have a true garment. And it was okay. It worked, but I really wanted something that felt a little more natural, rather than, and I can't see what I'm looking at, but there's a pin up here, like a safety pin, as we tried to wrap this one long piece of cloth around her to get a sleeve, and some covering for the chest. It's passable, but we're gonna try to do a little better. It is somewhat important because, of course, I'm gonna be using this on all of the paintings. We're depicting Mary, and for the most part, she's gonna be wearing the same material everywhere else. And that'd be nice too. If you're looking at it, it kind of continues to tell the story, and you're not getting lost as to who's who in the narrative. right along here. Okay, I'm kind of okay with that. I'm going to switch back to my other image as I try to make sense of some of these spots. It's a lot of just big. This is just nice here because it really truly follows the shoulder, and a lot happier with it. But then covering up what I had already built to kind of be the foundation is where the challenge really comes. One thing that is nice is after dealing with the fabric, you can kind of, after doing it long enough, you can kind of know what fabric's going to do, and it makes it a little easier to invent. But it's definitely come after many years of working on the model with drapery. So, I'm only using as much information as, as I need to create a believable image. One that, is not going to get immediately questioned by a viewer. I might be able to go a little thicker in here and get the coverage. It looks like I kind of did through there, so we may see that paint might have to get pretty beefy. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Even if you're watching this at a later date, don't be shy. Drop that question in, and I do my best to answer. 'Cause I like to be helpful in your artistic journey and what you're working on. I want to know what you're thinking about. Even had a couple of guys yesterday on the stream offer me some constructive criticism, and it was good. It helped me think about kind of where I was going and my next steps. So I was interested to see, if more individuals would come around on a Saturday. People are off work, and normally I've got to work where just a Monday through Friday sort of a time slot. I can't change that very much, and so it's interesting to see how many people would come on a Saturday to tune in, ask questions, be present. I didn't really announce it anywhere, so welcome to the stream. Good to have you. Feel free to drop off any questions. I've got, let's see, got about another hour and a half that I'll be streaming today. So I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna be painting. You can leave it on in the background. I might say something valuable, but right now I'm blocking in the major planes of the fabric, and once I have those described, I will come back in and get a little more detail in what I'm working on. It's hard to tell right now because I decided to change last minute what I was going to depict right here, and so I'm painting over my underpainting with not the imagery that I intended, and so part of that is going to show through. I may be able to work with it, but it also might require kind of one more layer later once everything is dried. Not sure. Hope everyone's streams is okay. I'm getting a warning. Oh, I think we're back on now. YouTube didn't like it. Didn't like the amount of information I had going. So sorry if you're experiencing interruptions. I apologize. I'm just at home on an average home internet connection. So this is a good time to talk a little bit about local values. So the local value of the blue is much lighter than the local value of the red. Same amount of light is hitting the shoulder here that's hitting the upper arm there, but this is the lightest point in the fabric on the red, whereas this is the lightest point there. And you know you're getting there as a painter. They're drawing when you can have those be side by side and not be concerned, and you can see I can see that the way the light is traveling from dark to the lightest point is working, and yep, they look like a totally different value because it's just inherent in the color of the fabric. You can even use, I don't know if I still have one laying over here. Let me see. I've got, might still be, oh yes, the old dirty but this value strip. Nice and messy value strip. But the idea is you can kind of take a look and determine what your values are. Because value being the most important part of painting. So if you were painting from life, you kind of hold that value strip out, make a comparison as to about how light or dark you needed to make a certain area, and then proceed. It's a great tool to have. Highly recommend it. And you can see my underpainting kind of showing through here. It's hard to cover that up. It's one of those things you don't think about until you do lay it in. I just wanted to change this, and so I'm doing it a little differently than I'd originally intended. That's okay. It just, you know, it causes a little bit of problems when it comes to just showing. Oh yeah, remember that was there. That was my original intention. So I see a question here from yeah, good. You like the straighter shoulder rather than the more rounded shoulder. Okay. Yeah, I might have to build up the paint a little more, or I may just throw all caution to the wind and lay down a lot of color, and we'll see. It all depends on how much I think I can achieve. So I may have to go back in on that area with another layer or two to achieve that, and that's okay. It is a work in progress. Yeah. It will require more work, definitely. So good question. Thanks for asking. I will have to. We'll have to go back over that. It's really fun shadow in here. I'm debating as to whether I want to try to block it in or not, or if I just don't want to take too much emphasis away from the hand. So yeah, it is a little disappointing that I needed to make that change, because then I'm just losing out a little bit on what it could have been. But I know that I just wanted a different feel for this area. So that's how it goes sometimes. Okay, a lot of times at this point, I've kind of blocked in this whole area. Everything is covered pretty much to the degree that I want. I might just do a little bit more, soften this edge. I'm gonna have to go back in and repair that, and I will, as soon as I kind of have everything oiled out and I can compare it a little more, since these are. This black here is about as rich as this is. It's just dried out and what they call sunken in. But it's about as rich and as deep as this is. And so I know that, and I know that I'm going to go back to it, but just not today. So this is the fun part of seeing these things in progress, where not always the best looking, not always the greatest results, until you finally get to the last refinement. And then it's also nice to see, oh, that was the intention, or that was the plan all along. Okay, I've got this built up. I'm gonna break up my little camel hair buffer, and I'm gonna move some paint around and just see if I'm successful at some of these areas. I know some of them won't be, and they'll probably require another layer. There's kind of no way around it. I kind of set myself up for failure in that, but it has to start somewhere. And I thought sometimes it's like, well, I might get lucky. We may get enough coverage for it to work, but I don't know that I did. So I'm taking this little buffer brush and I'm just pulling the paint kind of along the form of the fabric. And these are really subtle moves, but they tell us, when we look at it, they tell us what's happening. This will also remove all of there's a lot of brush stroke sheen that I'm just getting a kind of a bad reflection on my light source today. I think it's just my angle, but I'm a little set with the live stream. Everything is in place and I'm good with it. I'm good with suffering a little bit to try to get it right, even when I can't quite tell what's happening. I'm just trying to kind of create a little more roundedness, moving. Again, we're looking at an area that ultimately is going to be, yes, it's going to be there, but the hand, you won't even look at the fabric anymore to a degree. Once the hand is in place and it is there and working, kind of like all this work is, yes, it needs to be there, but it will just pale in comparison as to the things that you're really looking at. You're gonna be looking at the face. You're gonna be looking at the hands. You're gonna be looking at the dove, and those will still be the big focal points. So we haven't even really gotten to, what is the focal point? What really is this piece about? And once that's there, then it's kind of funny. All this work and care over the elements that. The supporting elements. It's kind of funny. They just won't be that way anymore. So right now it holds an extra importance. And a lot of times I used to work that way. I used to work on working from least important to most important. And it's kind of what's happening in this painting at this time, but that can only, I liked that because then each part got the attention that I thought it needed, and it was good and all, but then I would get to the face last, or I would do the hands, then I'd do the face. And there was just so much pressure by that point to do a really good job because I could see everything else was working, and it wasn't good. And so then I changed up my method a little bit, and I began working on the faces first and then the rest, and that seemed to go okay. What I really like to do when I can is more or less follow kind of what I'm feeling for the day. And that may seem rather arbitrary, and it is. But, if I'm feeling like I really want to tackle the face today, and even maybe that's on day one, then I'll do it. Because I know if I really achieve some good faces or some good hand gestures, then that can carry the painting for me for quite some time, even through what I like to call the kind of the dark period, because each painting has this moment where I dislike it quite a bit. I hate it, and I'm sad that I'm making it. And I just don't even, I don't know if I want to complete it. I want to know if I want to finish it. And I know we all experience that. So, that never goes away. And so sometimes I like to use certain areas as kind of encouraging moments, and then other areas are just have to wait. Again, sorry if the stream is dropping. I do appreciate you being here. Thanks again. Hopefully it'll come back on and get rolling again, but we'll see. And I may have to abandon this section until this dries and I can go back on top of it. Just looking at it and kind of seeing how it's working, and it's just not, because my underpainting, I decided to change it, and decided to change what I was going to paint on top, and so I'm just going to kind of leave it as is, and I'll come back to it. So I think I'm going to drop that and come back in on top of it with a fresh layer of red. I don't know, as soon as this red is dry, it's going to take a little bit. Not only can some of the reds take a little longer, I add a little bit of walnut oil into the paint, so I might be looking at a few days, upwards to a week. So I'm going to switch gears. Change the camera around a bit. See if I don't know what's going on with the stream today. Sorry. Trying. Looks like I have pretty good connection, but YouTube's not happy about it. So maybe they're having a particularly busy day. Okay, so I'm going to work on this other area here, just a little lower. And we'll see where we end up. No data whatsoever. Let's see if we kicked it back in there. Thanks for the good word. For some reason, YouTube is, I don't know, being funny today. So, it looks like I'm getting a decent bit rate. So, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to decide to kick in or not. Either way, we're working at it. I'm dedicated to trying to figure out how to make this whole thing work and get the entire painting documented in creation. So good to hear from you, Corey. Thanks, man. All right, I'm gonna work on this sleeve next. So first and foremost, I'll block in some of the darker values, and some of them do get pretty dark near black, especially underneath here. I'm going to paint over the fabric that I did yesterday, that I'm happy with. All right, see, I'm just kind of following laying in some of that, fabric, those deep darks. And then the rest has a little bit more red in it, even though it is dark, and I'm going to be wanting to be careful. It's kind of nice. I have, yesterday working on the blue, I can just butt right up next to that blue. That's nice. Yeah, it's nice to be able to have wet edges, but on a painting this size, it's difficult to keep all of it continually wet so that you can do that. Truth be told, I don't care for this red fabric all that much. It doesn't lay the way I like fabric to lay generally. There you go, Confessions of the Artist. But I like the color. It's red, but it's also a little orangey. So it's a really definite warm red, which I like. So I'm having fun just blocking in these shapes, and we'll see how much we get done today. Have another, whoops, didn't like that. Wipe that out a little bit. Have another, probably hour here, so we'll see how much of this gets accomplished today. The earlier, if you tuned in a little bit earlier, I had to stop that area because I changed what the model was draped in. I took some other photographs a couple of days ago and thought, you know, I think I'll like this better if I change this. So here I am. It's totally different. So letting these block in some of these lighter values now in the red. When the light's hitting. Being careful next to my blue that I did. Now the block-in phases, you know, they don't, tiling, a lot of people call it different things. You know, if I talked about, you know, a painting going through different times of like, okay, I really like it. Okay, I really hate it. And all of the points in between. I mean, even the block in itself has that same struggle. And times where, you know, you get something good in the quick moments, but then other times where it's like, well, I didn't quite achieve it there. And then learning how to continue in the face of those disappointments. So I'm just shape hunting, moving from area to area. Filling in these spaces. Yeah, this fabric lays completely differently than the blue. The blue is actually one of my favorites to paint. It chunks nicely, and the red doesn't do so as much. Looks like the stream is working again well, so sorry for the technical difficulties. Maybe someday I can have nice things. Wide open streaming and such. A Fordo way higher cockspill. Shadows, I realized I didn't get in. All right. As I was saying, you know, there in this stage, I'm always hunting for something that I see to block in, and it takes time. Trying to be extra careful. I do still have my blues from yesterday on. I'll store them along with the reds for the rest of the painting. And we'll mix them again next time for the next piece. Took pictures this week, so it's exciting. Got the visitation next. I'm gonna try, crossing my fingers, to do them all in order. The 5 Joyful Mysteries in order. And that really, it's gonna depend on just what happens. You know, I'm getting a baby model. So I mean, it's really exciting. It's really exciting. There's gonna be a lot of moving parts. It reminds me, I need to message a few people and try to arrange our next photo shoot. All right, I like that, and it is amazing how putting these reds down on top of an underpainting that's already in place, I mean, really does work. And there's a degree to which it's just shocking every time to me. It's like, oh yeah, that just sits so nicely on top of some of those marks I already made. It's kind of why the upper area failed to get there, because I didn't have the underpainting to just pin it down. This is interesting. I mean, it looks probably on the live stream as though, yeah, I mean, it's all opaque, but it's not. I mean, it's like this red is basically just showing this layer here, but with, you know, it's not a true glaze by any stretch, but it works that way. Pretty amazing. I continue to marvel about just how the materials work. So I guess that's a good thing. Yeah, this is turning out nice so far. Pleased. Especially this area. You know, I'm like, okay, yes, finally I've got, yeah, I'm satisfied with the blue here, but the area you're working on, you're kind of waiting and waiting and waiting for that moment of like, oh yes, I'm there. Or I have something that I can look at and be very satisfied with. I need that reinforcement each day, each painting session to kind of keep me going. So I'm using my brush stroke, kind of following the form as though I were moving around these folds. Even on this little edge down here that no one's ever going to think about. All right. I'm fairly satisfied with that. Yeah, even to the degree. Come down and knock this down just a little bit. Follow some of these lines, form lines. Occasionally I'll use like a fan brush or something just to drag across. So I can take this and I can almost follow this form. So if I just kind of turned it like this and not visible on the stream, but there's all these little marks now just in that spot. So sometimes I'll just do that here and there. Follow the form a little bit. It's interesting. These are things that well, yes, I did get a Bachelor's of Fine Arts. You know, these concepts weren't talked about. Painting meant a very different thing. And so I've had to learn it over the years and kind of come across things that work, being largely still self-taught. I mean, yeah, I got a lot of good stuff from my time at Wichita State. In fact, it's when I was given my palette that I still use to this day. So I'm definitely not knocking what I received there, because it was very good. But I did have to come across many of these techniques on my own that I think I would have learned had I been in an atelier. That would have helped out. So I'm going to go back into the blue here just a little bit within it, because there was just some that wasn't quite depicted. Today I'm using Chelsea. I'm using the thinner, although very little of it, if almost none of it. The Chelsea Classical Studios Lavender Spike Oil medium. So at present I'm VOC free, although I did mix enough with some of my color, some of the walnut oil gel from Natural Pigments, and just so that I almost don't have to use any medium, I can just kind of pick up the piles of color I made earlier, and that goes a long way, and I don't have to fight trying to get consistency the same. So as I was saying earlier, I'm doing a lot of inventing today, so I'm not the best at invention, admittedly. But I do really well when I have the information in front of me. But today I don't have that in a way that is being really helpful. So kind of going off of some of my, my understanding of drapery. I made a change, and that's usually when you get your problems, when you decide to, I'm going to make a change about. So I changed this garment up here. It has a different sheen, but now the model has a true dress that we'll be able to use in other in the future images for the painting, but required me to make some adjustments just for continuity. So I'm having to not include some of the satiny finish in this here, and so yeah, that's some guesswork in there. And it's okay to do a degree of that. Fabric, folds, drapery, whatever, a lot of different clothing. People call it different things. You have room to get it wrong. Much like a landscape, you have room to get it wrong. And it's okay to use that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Carefully come up to my edges here. The blue behind. So the challenge today is to not make it satiny, and it's gonna be tough to not make it appear too satiny, because obviously this little bit here is kind of doing it, and even a fabric that doesn't have a satin sheen to it still has highlights in the middle of the valleys. And I talked a little bit about that yesterday, where it's often I would think, oh well, the highlights are on the mountaintops of these folds, but oftentimes they're also in the valleys too, because the light is coming in, hitting that same essentially that same angle, and then it is oftentimes bouncing around in that valley and creating a really intense color. So it's a lot to learn when it comes to drapery. For the longest time, I made the highest points the lightest, but started to realize, well, some of the lowest points are the lightest. So in doing this, I'm seeing an overall problem that I'm going to have to work on, and it's just that my lights down here on the sleeve are not light enough. It's just very dim. I could take the shadows a little darker, that might help, and I might be able to pump up just slightly the value hitting the highlights of the fabric. So I think I'm going to go in a little bit of smaller brush. I did use some blue on it, so I'm going to clean it. And I'm going to just build some of these up a little darker, deeper, darker, see if it affects the rest. And making it a little lighter. I think that helped. So, this is just kind of pure mixing on the canvas. Still think I might have to get a few highlights in. Yeah, I think it's going okay. You're probably like, hey, why don't you do these 2 points and get that knocked out? It's a great idea. I should do that. You know, those are... Sometimes I get caught up in my details before I've truly finished describing things. My apologies. And I'm probably pumping the chroma up a little bit more than what is there. Chroma, by chroma I mean intensity, color intensity. Knowing that where it's going to be, how it'll be seen, the distance with which you'll see it. And add just a little bit of a highlight up here, see if I like it. I think I do. Yep, it needed that. Just a little more. Yep. I like that. I'm going to get my little buffer here, start kind of moving these around some so that they're a little more rounded. My stroke are these little, half moon marks. And just tell us what's happening. Our eye may not pick up on it, probably definitely not picking up on the stream at all. But here, depending on how I move that, determines what happens. Just saw something that might... Be careful where I place my pinky these days. It's getting pretty wet in these areas, so I got my pinky way up here on the hand. It's dry. Just have never been one for the maul stick. Yeah, I think I'm a lot better with that. All right, how much time is there? 3 o'clock. Do I dare? I dare. Let's do it. Let's see what else we can accomplish. I'm gonna have to work quickly and intuitively to make it happen, but we'll see. So I'm gonna scoot this over just a tad. Scoot myself over, and making a mess. That's what's happening. Brushes falling everywhere. Don't think I got any paint on me. That's a win. And this is mostly pretty dark, so I'm gonna try to block it in. Be quick about it. If I don't quite make it, I will have come close, come really close. I like a little pressure. Helps me move faster. I was the weird kid that didn't mind, you know, when my drawing instructor would say, "Okay, now you have a minute to capture the model," and so, you know, furiously trying to get every amount of information in, you know, in the minute. And of course, it's never what you want it to be, but it's swift and it's honest. And I'm always amazed at what comes from that. Nice bit of light and shadow here. I want to get it right. It's getting pretty dim by the time it gets out here. And sometimes on these you can really kind of look and assess, you know, just because the fold is there doesn't mean it has to be there in the painting, right? Because it may be distracting, or it may cause the eye to go in a direction you don't want it to, or just all things to consider. Areas that are dark, they don't usually require as much attention. They can be pretty loose and still work. But you know, you want to keep you want to keep all your color as best you can nice and rich throughout there, though. You don't want you want to just use a direct black or anything. You want to make sure you're still describing some things, even in that darkest 10% of your value range. Again, if anyone has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat also. When this is all done, you can 100% be watching this 2 years from now and send me a quick question. And if I'm still alive, I'll answer it. Almost got these really deep darks in place, and then see what we can do about barely where there's still some light, raking across the form through here, capturing that, just a little bit of that. See how we end up. Okay, those are nicely blocked in. It's darks, and we'll just see if we can get some of the lighter values, which aren't too much more lighter than what's there, but they are there. This brush I dropped on the floor. Kind of messy now. Yeah, good. Thanks for asking, Anna. To darken my red, it's just my chromatic black, and then Alizarin Crimson, and then no, it's really probably, yeah, I'm just kind of trying to peek at the live stream video. There's probably no way to see just how warm and red the black itself is. And so that goes a long way in kind of achieving that warm dark that still has a lot of color in it, even though, you know, our eye really sees it as black. But it's the very last thing it is, because it has all this beautiful, deep, rich red in it. It's a good question. Thank you. I was hitting my kind of midday slump. Didn't know what else to talk about. Sometimes there's just a weird bit of something on the canvas, and I don't know where it is. Don't know what it is, but we're gonna get it out of there. Getting there, getting there. Whew. Still can't quite see it done, but I am happy with this progress, and I look forward to next week. Probably going to take the next painting off from live streaming. Or I may just save the best parts for that one. Parts that everyone likes to watch. Hands, faces. So on and so forth. I was honestly doubtful that I would get to this place today, but happy it is where it is. Yeah, I still have to go back up and work on the area from earlier, but I'm going to need a drawing to occur first. I'm going to hit the goal today, which is always nice. Doesn't always happen. I do think there's something where I'm a little more loosened up by the end of the stream, and painting seems to go a little better. So where I'm just laying down a little more confidently and letting the brush do its thing. Can't take 3 hours to warm up each time, though. Other artists probably have that luxury. Annie said, storing your blue and red for later. How do you store? Yep. So some people do like the freezer, and I've just never done it because I don't have a whole lot of extra space in freezers. I will honestly, I'll just put it to the side So one of the values of the limited palette is that when I go back into, if I have to remix these, or I'll just kind of let them dry to a film, and I'll just, when I go to get them out, I'll just break the film and just use what's inside that's still wet. I will I'll also leave them there just to remix them. You know, I can see that it's there, and if I need to make a good big fresh pool, I can at least be looking at the color. I can pull out what's there, lay it out, and remix it. And the limited palette's nice because there's only so many colors with which to put the color back, put it back down. And so when I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna make this red. Well, you know, my burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, black, and alizarin crimson, and cad red, and you know, the mixture of those 4 tubes aren't going to get so off. I mean, the thing that could go wrong is value, right? So I could always, the value could end up not being the same or something like that, but I'm not going to have a really weird different color, because that just doesn't exist. There's only so many options, and you know, and I listed 4 colors, but there's only 4 other colors on the palette, period, one of which is white. And it, to me, just really makes it a lot simpler knowing that I don't, even if I have to go back in and remake that, it's not going to be that different because of the limited palette. And so I'll just leave them on the palette. I'll still pop off the glass from my Edge Pro Gear paint book, product placement, and then I will store that in an area that is a little airtight. I mean, it's not perfect, but I know that there's a chance that it might stay wet for a while. A case like this, probably not going to be long enough for me, but I will have those, and I will always have those same 2 colors on the palette, and if I need more, I'll just mix it, and it won't be too far gone. I tell I'm a fan of the limited palette. I talk about it all the time, but I do really believe in it. Mixing is key. If your colors are mixed with other parts of your palette, colors on the palette, you're well on your way to a great painting. Because direct tube color is too pure. Almost all the time, it's just too pure. It needs to be mixed and worked into others. Almost everything we do, maybe apart from what I'm doing right now, is low chroma. You know, there's not a lot of color saturation, and so everything within a tube is so saturated that it just really sticks out like a sore thumb if it's put down by itself. All right, let's play around a little bit. my buffer brushes. And so I can just soften some of these areas just a little bit. Follow those forms. And this is a step I do quite a bit. Kind of get out and just kind of clean up some of my areas, and I should probably be a little more intentional about leaving the stroke, but there's just some things that I like to this edge was just a little hard, so I'm going to try to pull in some of the color so that it turns around. We can hopefully feel that. Same with like this space in here, I can just make that feel very much flowy and better done there. Again, looking for what works. No part of the painting is going to stand solely on its own. And so is this part of my supporting cast? Is it good? And I think the supporting cast is looking good. It's going to work. Just wait until those hands get in. Oh, they're just islands that sitting out there. They're gonna look really nice when that happens. Against all this rich color, these soft, subtle skin tones, be quite beautiful. Yeah, I think you touched on it really well there, Anna, that if you're mixing, get a little more control, and my big thing is unity. It's like you don't think that the same blues that made this are in here, but they are. The very same colors are used throughout each, they're just in varying mixtures. And I think the eye picks up on that, and there's continuity even if we can't see it. So I think that's where I'm going to stop for today. I'm going to have to come back in and make some adjustments to the upper torso, but I'm excited where it ended today. I didn't think I would have got this far, but I'm satisfied. So thanks for watching, and as always, leave me a line and let me know what you'd like to see or any other questions. So I appreciate you being here, Anna, so much. Thank you.